So I'd like to start with a moment of silence for Ray Filkey. Ray was our representative in our area for many years. He was instrumental in helping us get the controlled substances done, and was very involved and retired due to health issues. What, John, year and a half ago? Is John here still? Year and a half, 2 years ago, due to health issues, and he'll be sadly missed. So if we could have a moment of silence for Ray, please. Thank you. And we did send flowers from the region, so flowers were sent down, and a bunch of us went down to the calling hours. Ann went, myself, you said Mark, you went, so we did make sure that we did go down and pay our respects to the family. So, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Review of previous minutes and approval. Any modifications, changes required?
Debbie, I was here at the last meeting with the show that.
Okay. So Dottie and Walter were at the last meeting. Any other changes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the minutes with those modifications?
I'll make that motion.
Bobby makes that motion, seconded.
Second.
Jay Gannett, treasurers. Thank you. Correspondence, enforcement list. The first one is from Melvin Harrington from Andes, New York. Suspended for 6 months, effective 9/17/18. The suspension is stayed. Placed on 3 years probation, effective 9/17/18. Assessed a penalty of $1,000 for violations of 800.15B, which was in effect on February 29, 2016. Next one is for Stanford Smith from Brookhaven, New York. Suspended for 1 year, 6 months deemed to have been served concurrently while the time period of December 17th through May 2018, during which the respondent still did not have certification. The remaining 6 months is stayed. Forever prohibited from participating in the CME recertification program. Assessed a civil penalty of $4,000. $2,000 of the penalty is suspended. 800.116A7. Next one is Bayside Community Ambulance Corps in Bayside, New York. Revoked effective 5/29/18 for violations of Article 3012. 1F. The last one is Alejandro Sonaro from Bronx, New York. Revoked effective 5/12/18 for violations of 10 NYCSR Part 816A4. So those are the suspensions and the enforcement list. The other communications is from New York State, from Ryan Greenberg, the director of the Bureau, saying, congratulating Roberta Simpson for receiving the Vital Signs 2018 award for Communication Specialist of the Year. So congratulations, Bobby. And we had a second winner, and that was Jeffrey Gibson from Governor. He has received the ALS Provider of the Year. So congratulations to him. And folks, that's why we harp so much on getting representation from our county from our region into the council, into the state council, so they can choose folks. So it's not too early to start. If you know somebody's, this year has gone above and beyond, you can get that information together so that we'll have it for next year, because they will have to be done early again, so we'll be working on that. So if you have somebody, please, keep them in mind and get it written up, and we have the regional awards that they can receive as well. Other correspondence, you're gonna do yours under your report? Okay. Committee reports, Mark Tuttle, Air Medical. Now that he has a mouthful of food and
All in the timing.
Ann Smith had contacted me a couple of weeks back relative to an inquiry from Mercy Flight Central and operations on Fort Drum. All the air medical folks were here tonight, Mercy Flight Central, Fort Drum, and Life Med in New York. Mercy Flight and Fort Drum had already been in contact with one another. As far as from a Remsco perspective, it's operational, and everyone is talking to each other. Karen Ernest from Fort Drum Ground EMS provided a nice updated LZ map for us, so I think that we're all good to go from an air medical perspective.
very nice.
And I am not aware of anything else. Honestly, somehow I didn't pay attention to the fact that I'm now the air medical guy on Remsco. Until Ann sent me this email. And
So
said,
this is
"Hey."
what happens when I send out the Survey Monkeys and ask you to give me your top 3 choices.
Yeah. So to that end, I don't know if Bryce is here from LifeNet, Sergeant Dickey and Dr. Cartier here from Fort Drum, and Matt is here from Mercy Flight. If any of you gentlemen have anything specific from your individual entities.
Good?
That concludes.
All right. Dave Allen is out of town. No auditing has gone on, but hopefully we're through the summer and hopefully he'll be back and we can get that taken care of as well. Bobby, anything from the bylaw side? CON side, I'm not aware of anything. Oh, you have something? Okay.
So, one thing that I would ask the CON committee to consider is why are we charging $1,000 for a clarification of territory? They're asking through the policy a lot of data and paperwork for our agencies, and there is no mailing or really per se copying, other than what I would copy to give to the committee members, which is a minimal amount. So I would ask that the CON committee review the policy statement in regards to clarification of territories, and consider removing the fee of $1,000 for that, because we're gonna give most of it back. So I don't know that we need to stress our agencies with that amount of money up front for our treasurer.
I'd like to respond to that as your ex-CON chair. That was done because of it used to be $500 for both that and transfers. When you added the fact that you've got to have a stenographer here for the meeting, that drove up the price.
So,
On the voting,
my understanding
and
with the
They get the remainder back. They get the remainder back of whatever the fee is. So let's say it totals, because of the stenographer, let's say it totals $200. But we do have that cushion there if it goes far more for some strange, odd reason. It's never fun to have to go bill collect. I have done that.
So, well, I understand that charge for transfer of certificates. There is not a requirement to have a stenographer at the meeting for a COT unless I'm incorrect. John, please correct me if you know.
I thought any CON boat required a stenographer now. We didn't used to, but I thought any CON act, maybe John will have a little input.
Off the top of my head, I think Ann is right, but I wanna double check the policy statement of 606. And
That's not addressed in the 606.
no, it is not, and they're right, now that I say
It
that.
is not, it has its own policy statement.
Yes, it does.
and
And
I
I
know,
think we've only done one clarification of territory, maybe two.
Well, we'll get together, Mark Tuttle, Larry Gerard, and somebody from the executive committee to review that, and we can bring that to the next meeting and either clarify it or make a modification if the CON committee so recommends for the February meeting. Executive, I'm not aware of anything at this point. Dave Sherman, his mom passed away, so he's not here tonight, so our thoughts go out to Dave on legislation. I don't know what was covered at state council because he wasn't there because of that either, so I don't know. We can find out if there was any, because typically we forward them to others. Debbie, did you go to legislation? You didn't, did you?
No, but they covered it in our.
So you have a report that you can give, perfect. Carol, membership.
Okay, so we had vacancies, 3 from Lewis, 2 from St. Lawrence, and 3 from Jefferson. We did get back our completed bios, and so we're bringing forth these people for our recommendation. The first one is, these are Jefferson County, will be Bruce Wright, and,
One at a time,
pardon?
one at a time.
Yep. And we're asking for a motion to accept. Any questions?
It's coming forth as a seconded motion.
Seconded motion, yeah. Any questions? Okay, motion to accept.
All those in favor of Bruce Wright joining the Remsco, show of hands, please. Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay, so he will be on. The second one is Lance Ronas, and he is from Indian River. Can I have a motion to accept any questions? This is also Jefferson County for Remsco.
Any questions on Lance joining the Remsco? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
The third position, we have brought forth, we're asking for a representation from Fort Drum. This would be someone of their choice, a medic designee and an alternate. That's not anyone named specifically, correct, this time, but we're asking for, to have this seat as a Fort Drum seat. Can I have a motion to accept or any questions first?
We thought rather than trying to tie a name to that with the way the military turns over and transfers, that we would be spending all of our time putting a new name for it. So we thought if they could designate a person and a designee, we'll make sure that both of them receive all the communications so that they could have somebody here and give us some input and be part of our process for Jefferson County. I can't hear you well. Perfect. Perfect. Nominatold or nominated?
Motion to accept.
All
Vote.
those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So carried.
Okay, and that takes care of Jefferson County. St. Lawrence County, we have Karen Blackburn. She works for NIAC. We have 2 openings in this county, and her bio was complete, and her recommendations were very good. Can I have a motion to accept, or any questions first? Any questions? Motion to accept?
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions?
The second one from St. Lawrence County would be Mark Dalton. He belongs to Canton Rescue. He's a paramedic. He would be excellent on our board. Can I have a motion to accept him, or any questions? Motion to accept?
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Lewis County, we did have a couple applications. We're holding the applications at the moment, because if we put these two particular people on, that would give a 30% group of the same search and rescue on Remsco. So we're asking to hold that, and we're looking for some more diversity out in the Lewis County. So for right now, we'll hold those applications.
Is there anything saying that that's a bylaw or anything like that? Is there any
I'm not
rules
sure.
stipulating that?
No, but it does say throughout our bylaws that we do want the diversity. And our main concern was having 8 of the 9 people employed by Lewis County when it came to voting, if it's something over there, that they're all gonna abstain, and that we may not be able to approve certain things. That was the concern with them being paid employees over there.
Okay. It's a small county with big states, so that's gonna be your problem.
I'm one of a handful of paramedics that live in that county, and I'm a burden to
We
employee.
employ every paramedic with the exception of one in this county. We employ the majority of the EMTs, so you're going to have that issue.
Right. Well, we're looking also into the fact that there are some industries down there. There's some other agencies, not necessarily EMS per se,
I talked to Nick Hanna.
that we might,
Supposed to be turning in an application. I just don't think I think you need to look at it's like St. Lawrence County, Jefferson County, they have a lot of agencies, whereas like Lewis County doesn't. And I get you want the civilians to do that, but you just narrow it down and say, Matt, you can't be on Remsco because you're part of search and rescue, I don't know, to me, I would say the same thing if Guilford was sitting here and having the same problem. So, you gotta to me, you gotta be careful singling that out, especially if there's nothing in there saying that, in black and white, in the bylaws saying you can't have this many percentage from an agency. Because Matt's gonna have different insight than I do, Mark's gonna have a different insight than I do. You just gotta be careful with that, is all I'm saying.
We're not rejecting them, and I'm gonna personally call them tomorrow and let them know, and then follow up with a letter. We're just gonna put it on hold and just investigate a little bit better and see if we can, and then if we're not successful, we'll bring them forward at the February meeting. And it's just gonna, if there's something we're voting on for you over there, it's just gonna cause making sure we have enough people that can vote, that's all. Nominating, there's nothing to do there. Peer, Mark.
No report, I would love if there's committee members.
Well, now we have some people to choose from, to put on those committees.
So, I do have a couple things that I would like the peer committee to look into, and I apologize because I didn't get them to you, and I just thought of them. So I did read an article where Black River Ambulance and the military search and rescue unit had a very successful outcome, and I would think that that may be something that we want to look at the peer committee. I had the.
I know the mission, I'm just kind of listening. Are you talking about training, or are you talking about?
No, we're just looking at it for recognition because we think that it was a spectacular operation. So, I just wanted to add that in there.
Program agency.
Is there any objection to me combining the program agency and the REMAC report? Hearing none, moving forward. So I apologize to those who sat through the REMAC, but I will try to be very brief because this is not separated out, but we've attended the regional. Thank you. I could have thought that one second. We attended the regional Stroke Advisory Committee and the Regional Trauma Advisory Committee. We should have a state trauma report by the end of October. SUNY Upstate has a new burn director coming. We had some discussions at the REMAX surrounding the state's transition to third-party designation of stroke centers, which is ongoing. It doesn't appear that it was going to include TPA-capable hospitals. There was discussion surrounding transport decision to go to a comprehensive versus a primary stroke center and what Syracuse is looking to do, and how that may work in the North Country. Again, it's discussion. There's outside of calling medical control at this time. If you have a potential large vessel occlusion, we don't have any specific direction. There will be, as we move forward, we will be looking at probably promoting the FAST ED scale, which there is an app for, and training providers on how to recognize a large vessel occlusion, as well as on the difference between the comprehensive and the primary stroke centers. So the REMAC approved Dr. Parshall as medical director for Lewis County Search and Rescue. We did receive correspondence that DeGrasse Clare South Russell was approved and given a BLSFR agency code. We're still awaiting paperwork on the others listed. Your update on CAD, public access defibrillation, the Diocese of Ogdensburg was an original, and then we had an update for Clarkson University and dental office in Watertown. The following regional BLS adjuncts were approved at REMAC, so Beaver Falls Ambulance for Narcan and BLS CPAP, Cranberry Lake for BLS blood glucometry, and they already have their limited lab license. We updated the albuterol for Clarkson University's MD change. And then syringe epinephrine notices, which are a pass-through as well to the state for Clarkson University and Beaver Falls Ambulance. We're still waiting on Kate Vincent's limited lab license. Did an ALS inspection at Lewis County Search and Rescue. Added 2 new EPCR agencies, and I know there's a lot on there, but it's the same slide I show every month with the new ones highlighted, being Madrid Rescue and Rensselaer Falls Rescue. Transition from paper to EPCR. So with Image Trend, we have Cranberry Lake and Seaway Valley that are looking at utilizing this. We don't have a go live date for them. Beaver Falls may be looking at Image Trend as well. Previously, we had sent them information on EMS charts, and Waddington and Star Lake looking at EMS charts. And then 3 of the agencies over in Lewis County, Constableville, J.S. Coster, West Leiden, are looking at using the Forte IPCR vendor. We do need EPCR 5136 forms because EMS charts will be transitioning to V3, and the state is requiring these from Carthage, Colton, Herman, and R.B. Lawrence. We'll continue to send weekly reminders for these. I will be making phone calls to try and get those. Our PCR delinquencies have not been as bad. We're working with Lewis County Emergency Management to make sure we're getting JS Costers, and hopefully that will be a concern of the past once we get them on electronic PCRs. And Redwood has contacted our office to say that they would be sending them in. So the Coverdale Stroke Program, this is really exciting as we build our regional bridge and we transition to NEMSIS V3. Again, we have 2 paper agencies that are going to hopefully come on, being Beaver Falls, as I mentioned, and Seaway Valley Ambulance, that are actively looking at it. But we've had 6 agencies transfer over to the Image Trend system, 2 of which are new to EPCRs. We continue to do weekly conference calls, and the exciting part about this is it has a hospital hub component that will be rolling out to hospitals shortly, And this is gonna solve the age-old problem of hospitals not getting their PCRs, cause they will be able to go in there and to the regional bridge that we're having built, and they will be able to pull the PCRs for any patient that's transported to their facility. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, it doesn't matter who the vendor is on the back end, whether it's EMS charts, IPCR, AIM RAM software, that's all going to transition. The state's transitioning them one at a time. EMS charts, which is our next largest vendor in the area, is set to transition and export, change the mapping and on the background, in the background, so that we'll be getting that data. You know, the other exciting thing about this is once all of these agencies are transitioned and onto NEMSIS V3, we may actually be able to pull some decent quality measures for our region.
Bless you.
Bless you. So, that's exciting. And again, I have a meeting next Thursday regarding that. These are the agencies that we have CME skill sessions for: Canton, Potsdam, Lewis County Tiers. They are on our website on the calendar.
The tier one is next week.
Oh, well, they had it. So we did do some CME suspensions. A couple of times after we made some contact, we realized that 2 of them, and they were reinstated, the manager putting them in forgot to hit save. And 3 were fined for their second suspension in 3 years. The fines have been paid and CMEs completed. 1 was reinstated after completing CMEs. A no affiliation letter was sent. Providers, there was 9 providers that were suspended previously, so they remain suspended. There's some trainings that we completed over the summer. The difficult airway training being the highlight for this group. As you know, this group is, supported us going to get our instructor, and we did a class, and it was very good reviews from it. So
How many people do you have in the class then?
we had 16, right? Yes. We had 16 in the class, which is just about the perfect size class. We have to maintain an instructor ratio. And it was Justin, Paul Barter, Mark Devers, and myself, and we had to have regional faculty for the difficult airway course come up and sign us off, so they helped us with some of the stuff. But it's a very intensive 2-day with a lot of hands-on course. We did have to beg, borrow, steal, no, we didn't steal, reach out to a lot of reps to get the additional equipment that we needed to be able to show these folks different types of video laryngoscopes, different types of supraglottic airways. So as we move forward, we can hopefully purchase some of that. But it's a costly course with, the cost of the books and the cards and all these fees that we have to pay that we can't get around. So I think the only one thing is a lot of people that'll like the hard copy of the textbook, but if we start getting textbooks for them, it's double the cost of the e-text. So we'll probably continue to do the e-text and let them know that if they want to purchase the hard copy, they can go out on their own and purchase that. So,
So you guys are all set now to be able to teach.
we are all set.
You all clear?
Yes. So if there's, anybody else who has taken the difficult airway course and they are interested in becoming an instructor, we can broach that, but you would probably have to go to, like the Finger Lakes incorporates it into their paramedic program. So I could certainly help facilitate maybe going down there and helping out and potentially getting, because you have to be signed off by their regional folks, like we can't sign you off. But that may be an option, but we have the contact, or to go elsewhere when they're doing a course, Stony Brook or somewhere else. And if they have regional faculty present, so. With that said, the other thing which I didn't talk about at the, REMAC, but I'm also looking at getting our NAEMT site back up and running. And Ben Jaquay has, he's retired from the military, from working at the Mystic now, but he is regional faculty for them and is willing to come up and help us. So I'm going to be sending out a general email to seek interest in becoming a PHTLS instructor and have them come up and do a small course. But again, they gotta be people that are going to commit to helping us teach the courses and moving forward with that, and then we can move forward with AMLS and all of those again. So the BLS CMEs, here's the implementation plan. This was, I reported on this last time. So updates, we've had 143 MTs registered since 9/20, as of 9/28/18. The letters to the agencies to identify their CME managers have been sent, and that went to all agencies because we wanted updated information for our ALS agencies. Weekly requests are gonna be sent, but we've had minimal engagement from our agencies. So Jefferson County, we got 10 out of 33, Lewis, 2 out of 8, St. Lawrence, 11 out of 38. So if you have contact with agencies, please ask if they've sent their CME manager updates into the program agency and endorse that for us, would be greatly appreciated. And I can't really do the other stuff until after tonight's meeting, which time the CME manual changes were approved by the REMAC as well as the BLS skill sheets. So now I can work on the correspondence to the agencies. The BLS skills will be required annually for providers, and the first annual will be due by December 31st, 2019. And as the program agency, my plan is to schedule in each county some trainings where we can do the skills. So I'll be working with local agencies, et cetera, to try and scatter some trainings and have a schedule up at the beginning of the year to help out with that. The SEMI program continues to move forward. We do have a couple of uses, so we have some positive information out of that. Our next big decision is what we're gonna do with the agencies who have done nothing, that have received the equipment. But we haven't seen any of their paperwork, so that'll be up and coming. And hopefully, we've actually at St. Elizabeth's is new into the process that we're working on as well, especially for our Lewis County folks that may be going that way. EM Resource, our contract was approved, and this week we'll be starting work sessions with the company to build the dashboard. Each hospital needs to appoint a system administrator, as I reported at REMAC. For some reason, all my emails are bouncing back from Lewis County General, so they're not on there, but in all fairness to them, I did get the information to them because my emails kept bouncing back. Camp Potsdam, Samaritan River, Governor have appointed theirs, so I have a couple of the hospitals to get folks on board with. So the Operation Lifeline grant that we applied for was not received. Westchester region had asked if any regions were interested in doing a TXA demonstration project, and there was interest from the REMAC, and we're gonna get some more information on that. We'll be working with a collaborative group to roll out AMT changes that were approved. Thoughts for the regional study were in regarding 12 leads. The other following motions, there was a motion approved to change the RSI policy to include other advanced airway management courses to be considered by the committee, and reciprocity from other regions to be considered by committee, with it clearly being stated that this would not waive any testing. And Dr. Cartier, who is the new flight battalion surgeon, at Fort Drum was approved for membership at the REMAC. Did I get them all? Questions for the program agency?
Safety, anything, Larry?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Debbie, Remsco CMAC.
Semsco CMAC, so we met on Tuesday and Wednesday, last week. On the back table, I have all of the minutes that Ann and I did, and everybody got them. And always remember that you can watch the webcast on it for stuff that, we may have left out. So, I'm not gonna do this whole thing, cause actually it's very long, but I'm gonna touch on a few topics. Under, the EMS staff report, with Director, Greenberg, when I first started attending state council meetings was in 1996. And in 1996, we had 6 meetings a year, every other month, we had a meeting. And then over the years, it went down to 5 meetings, it went down to 4 meetings, and now it's 3 meetings a year. And, council members, complain, and CMAC members that in 3 meetings, they don't have enough time to conduct, committee business and meet. So, Director Greenberg, what he did is he, wanted to see if we could have more meetings a year. That was not, he's not able to do that. But what we did accomplish was that in between each council meeting, there will be committee meetings done remotely. So we're going from 3 meetings a year to 6 committee meetings a year. So, that's a positive, so we can do committee work, in between the meetings. The Bureau is working on a grant, for additional content for providers on opioid and mental health, training, dealing with mental health, patients and with mental health issues with providers. And as a provider, our own well-being. So I think that grant is great, the idea that we ourselves can look at us as providers and how our mental health is going on all these calls and tragedies that we see each year. There's also a grant submitted on leadership development. There was the EMSC grant for PET coordinators, what they call it, and they're called pediatric care, emergency care coordinators. And what they're looking at is coming up, creating the standards of excellence for pediatric care and developing local PECC, that's how we go by PECC coordinators. And they're modeling this after a Virginia standards for accreditation. And so what they would love to see is 3 hospital emergency care coordinators in the hospitals. They would like to see them in the agencies. And if you can't, if the agencies can't do it, you could even have 1 designated person in a region. And what they're looking at is pediatric standards and equipment. They have found through things that you have pediatric equipment on your ambulance, but if you go to a provider and say, you take out a pediatric, something pediatric, and say, how do you use this? Providers don't necessarily know how to use that equipment. So that's part of this, pediatric emergency care coordinators to work and educate people in the region and in those areas. The CC to paramedic program. The applications are gonna open in January, so it's right around the corner. It'll cost $1,500 upfront. So you have to pay $1,500 upfront for that course. And at the end, you can seek reimbursement, but you will have to pay it upfront. And then you can voucher for it upon successful completion of the program. So it's 6 modules. The first 3 modules are done. The first module is preparatory, that will last 6 weeks. At the end of each module, you will have to take a FISTAT exam. And there's skills. They talk about 5 skills, but they only mentioned 4. And they were, for the skills portion, was needle crite, surgical airway, 12 leads, and chest tube maintenance. And John, by any chance, do you know what the 5th one is? Because they kept saying 5, but they only mentioned 4.
Wasn't it 12 weeks? 12 weeks.
Yeah, they said 12 leads.
Totally, okay.
So there's supposed to be another one, but I'm not sure what it is. And remember, the CC, the paramedic, is only covering the gap material. So, and it's gonna take 12 months to complete it.
You know, I've had a couple of people ask me, just in general, and then looking at the material that's available just online, which is limited, what is, just from a practical aspect, what would be the advantage of an existing CCDF versus just doing a traditional paramedic program that's the same amount of time?
Well, I guess let me take that on, I guess. One, not all paramedic programs are a year or less. Many paramedic programs are 2 years. That's issue 1. Issue 2 is, this is, literally they can do it at their home. It's all online. They computer in, computer out, no travel costs. Okay? Last piece of this is, remember, there's no clinical or there's no ambulance internship ride time. So that's another big piece of this. Lastly, the one thing that is not, this is a disadvantage to what this is. You're not eligible for national registry. So in other words, you cannot use this to go to use it to get to national registry, because you will not come out, even if the paramedic program where you go elect to affiliate yourself with to do the skills is accredited, you will not come out as an accredited paramedic. And that's the downside to this. And that's kind of where it is. Please remember that this was like anything, was a drawn-out solution. In other words, there were compromises all the way around to get us through this process, and that's the process we have.
It was a compromise, and I sat on that tag, and it was also agreed that there would be no financial implications to the people that wanted to take it. And now there's a $1,500 upfront charge, so there is a financial. So when we did it, there wasn't gonna be a charge, and now all of a sudden, now there's a $1,500 charge that people or agencies are gonna have to pick up, so.
Well, I think the key is in the intent, once you successfully complete it, you can vouch for it and get it back. I get you that, yes, there's a fee up front, but that's the deal. Remember, Mark, the other option is this. Any critical care is eligible to do advanced standing in a paramedic original program.
If that program allows you to.
Well, that's the key, and most don't want to allow it because of the piecemeal nature of how the curriculum fits into the current paramedic curriculum. Remember that this originally, just for 30 seconds, the original critical care course was based on modules of the DOT 15 back in the day of 1970-something, okay? And it didn't transition well when we went to, was it 93 to the new paramedic curriculum? It was before where we went to now, where they're no longer curriculums, it's just an educational standard. And that's kind of where it is. So the short answer is, those are the reasons why people are doing this. We anticipate it, being fairly popular in terms of people wanting to do it. But the downside is that people need to understand that, I won't say it's just going to be New York State. As an example, there are I can't speak to other states, but there are some other states that don't require you to be national registered to work in their state or as a way to bridge in. But they are a minute number comparison to the rest of the country.
Thank you.
Director Greenberg's gone on he's called a listening tour. He's going around and he's visiting the patient councils and talking with people. And these are a few things that he said. Throughout his listening tour, some of the common themes, everywhere he went, was a lack of the community's understanding of what EMS is. Community engagement and education, community paramedicine, retention and recruitment, and communications from the unit. So that was a common theme we saw when he was out there. He was looking at how to put together information that agencies can share with their elected officials, municipalities, etc. Version 3 of the NEMSIS data is showing that the top 5 primary impressions of presenting problems in patients are behavioral, abdominal pain, trauma, respiratory, and cardiac. That's the top 5 presenting problems. Lowering the age, remember we talked about lowering the age of EPs, 18 to 17. Okay, what happened was they put out a comment period. People had ideas and changes they'd like to see. So those came in, they were reviewed, and now it goes back out to comment again. And then, we don't know how long it will take before it's finalized. So I haven't even done it.
No, I don't.
No. The state is looking at regional metrics of how many agencies are using regional adjuncts. You know, the Narcan, epinephrine, glucometry, and the annual training for providers. So, for instance, if you show up at an agency and you've got an EMT there, and they're able to do all of these things and say, tell me how you're gonna do epi-syringe or something. And, they're able to do these things, and unless you have, CMEs to do it, how do we know that they really know how to use that equipment? Under, the legislation, there was a few, laws, you can look at those on the thing. But the main one that I wanted to talk about was, Jimmy's Law. And this is legislation that was introduced that would require the first agency not leave until the transfer was complete during an out-of-hospital patient transfer between agencies. So, for example, Jimmy was in the back of a ground ambulance, and they were transferring him to their medical. The ground ambulance left, and due to an air medical problem, that couldn't be fixed at that time, Jim died. So this legislation is that the ambulance, in this case, the ambulance would stay here until everything was all set for air medical or ambulance to ambulance. So sometimes when people transfer over, they just buy but you need to stay and make sure everything's okay before the original ambulance parts. They said people were questioning it as to what exactly they're looking for, as a lot of that is already in our protocols and should be customary practice for all agencies. So that was the main legislation. Under education and training, we talked a lot about it, and in my training and education meeting today, we discussed all of this. But regional faculty, that's something I want to go over. So if you want to become a regional faculty, and John, correct me if I missed something, if you want to become a regional faculty person, it was before the Remsco recommended, the course sponsor, and went through the process. It's not like that anymore. You're supposed to submit your resumes to the state. They will determine who they will choose as regional faculty. It will no longer go through the Remscos, and the Remscos will no longer recommend people for regional faculty.
That is correct.
So why don't we just touch on that right now? So we wanted to make people aware of who our regional faculty are in our area. So for Jefferson County, we have Paul Barter, Raleigh Churchill retired, we have Debbie Foltz, and we have Dave Sherman. In Lewis County, we have Jim Devers, who has retired. I'm not sure if he's still teaching. It expired, so he's gone, and Mark Tuttle. In St. Lawrence County, we have Robert Silly, and that is it for regional faculty for the North Country. So,
Storm.
well, it's,
Storm, okay, Storm Sealy, I was gonna say,
his
okay.
name's Robert.
Okay,
That's
sorry,
what
got
last
it.
year.
Yeah, that's sounding better, okay. Who's that?
So I think it would behoove us to get with our CIC, see who might be interested, and work on getting those numbers bumped back up and getting some regional faculty in the area.
Regional council should review policy 1206 on mutual aid. Agencies must have a mutual aid agreement with at least one agency, and NEMSIS 3 person will be tracking mutual aid. Safety, been working on revision of Part 822, as well as we're going to review 23 and 24. We haven't completed those yet, so that's what it is. And Wadsworth, that's a whole thing, and I'm turfing that to John.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me just go back to safety for 30 seconds here. 823 and 24, what the intent there is to relook at the equipment lists that are being carried, to look at, do we really need to be carrying some of that stuff? As an example, personal opinion, the 54-inch padded board splint could go bye-bye as far as I'm concerned. Now, one of the people said, oh, the bite blocks, well, that's only in the Part 18 code, that's not in Part 800, thank God. But at any rate, so it's time to get your, write your cards and letters into the group. If you want to get rid of stuff off the equipment list, now's your time, folks, because we haven't done that in quite a period of time. At any rate, let me take on the blood transfer issues, and I'll try to be brief here, but it takes a couple minutes just to tell this story. One is, it was identified back in 1994 that there was a conflict between the blood regs and EMS providers were not on the approved way to be able to transfer blood pre-hospitally in New York State. And it took them to 2014, okay, to get this legislation through and passed. It was 10 years, okay? So they passed this legislation, and as many things occur in state health regs and many regs, it's compartmentalized, okay? So in other words, like we have 405, which covers everything in hospitals. We have Article 30, Part 800, which covers everything pre-hospitally. We have the Wadsworth Labs, which covers everything there is to do with blood. There is no overlap sometimes in the understandings of those issues. And that's kind of, I guess, the best way I can set the stage for what I'm about to tell you. What happened was we had the process as and we're fortunate here in the North Country of the 12 services in the state that we've gotten in the last 3 years. 2 of them are sitting here right now, and that would be Guilfoyle and Lewis County Governor. Sorry about that, Mark. Well, I forgot you used to work there. At any rate, yeah. Well, some things I flash back, And it's our chuckling friend over on the far side here from Lewis County, none other than Lewis County Search and Rescue. Hey, at least I know you're listening. All right, now, so at any rate, what happened was, frankly, the process, these 2 guys will tell you, was very arduous, to say the least. And 2 years, I think, in Mark's case, it was?
It was about a full year.
A full year.
9 months.
9 months, okay? And there was the process. Now, the folks showed up and said, oh, we've got a much cleaner, newer, better process, and instead of having 24 steps, it's down to 12, and so forth. And you need to understand that these folks are clinical folks. They're not clinical folks, they are regulatory lab tech folks. They don't understand the clinical impact of this. So what happened is they showed up at the meeting and they basically said, okay, we as Wadsworth license anything that has to do with blood in the state of New York. So if you are a hospital, you have a license to be a blood bank, and it only applies in the four walls of your hospital. And the only legal way you can move blood in the pre-hospital care environment is be one of these 12 services that are currently approved statewide to allow that to occur. And, oh, by the way, you can't send a nurse because the nurse has no role in the pre-hospital care environment. Okay? So needless to say, the group of physicians who were there were not pleased with that. And they did a memo to the commissioner, and they did a motion to the commissioner, because they are an advisory to the commissioner. They also did a formalized letter, dear commissioner, we're recommending that you put a moratorium on these regs for 1 year to allow us to get enough services up, trained, and so forth. Well, how and where that's at, I've not heard. This happened last week. We're going to have some staff conversations internally about this later this week, I'm told, and I'll know more. Literally, that's where it is. Now, a couple of, oh, by the way, things. As an example, let's say you're an air medical service person, and you cover 30 hospitals. You have to have an individual contract with each one of those hospitals. Okay? If, so in other words, it's going to be quite the ordeal. Now, Debbie had made a very good suggestion earlier that perhaps the two gentlemen in the room would share their templates of what they put together to help other agencies work through this to get up and running. Now, the folks did say if the application was complete, they would do their best to turn something around in 2 weeks. Did I get that right, Deb?
That's what they said.
Okay, that's what they said, Ann. Thank you. That's what they said. So, and that's what they said, and I think they were very sincere in that promise. I think they were very sincere. So, folks, if you have to do interfacility transfers, or you do interfacility transfers, my suggestion would be you get on it, okay? And I'll offer my support and help as we can, which I'll do everything I can to move that along, or, get clarifications on questions or whatever. Obviously, our bigger services like Guilfoyle and RB Lawrence and others, Seaway Valley, that do a lot of transfer work, this is going to be probably a high priority for them. Okay, and so we'll see. And there are others, who occasionally do interfacility. Now, there are CON ramifications to this. I am not prepared to discuss that today because I don't have direction on how we're going to manage that at the moment. But that's where we are. Questions?
Is Wadsworth gonna communicate with the hospitals, so?
Funny you should bring that up.
I asked that
Now are
question
not gonna, when
specifically.
they get an inspection, they're not gonna get.
All right.
dinged on it.
How this basically was supposed to go, first off, I remember in 2014, when the letters were sent out by both the head of the Wadsworth Labs and HSM to the dear CEO letter, hi, the blood's changed, you need to work with EMS on this, yada, 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 to make this work. Now, whether or not that perked down to the right places internally, you never know. Okay, second issue I would say on that subject is that we, pre-hospital, here was what they said, and this is, again, I'm mouthing back what the lady said, and Ann, jump in and if I get this wrong. Okay, if we hear about an ambulance service that goes out and does one of these transfers, we're gonna send them a notice and say, you're in violation of the public health law, you have 10 days to get licensed. If they ignore it or don't do it, then the next letter will go to them plus to the hospital that enabled them to do that and say, oh, by the way, don't do that again and you're in violation of the public health law. Beyond that, the meeting got kind of strong-willed, I guess, and it kind of just went from there, and it kind of, and again, I think in fairness, the docs were not trying to beat up the two ladies who came. They were just there to deliver the message. And they are citing, just so we're clear about this, this is coming at the advice of the DOH attorneys that are interpreting this. And it makes sense, unfortunately, because that's how we've done many of these things over the past years with some of our programs, because there are very definitive lines of in-hospital versus out-of-hospital, and the crossing of those barriers are not easy sometimes. So that's kind of where it is. Details to follow. Ann and Deb, please jump in if I missed anything or if you can characterize it correctly.
So following the second notice,
Oh, yes.
and what they didn't want to spit out and finally did, there then comes a monetary fine
Yes.
to the agency.
Yep.
So again, anybody who does transports, and again, we're gonna try to help with the process as best we can, you really need to get cooking on this.
And again, I am committed to support anybody who wants to do this, okay? Anybody that needs to or wants to, we'll make it work. I'll bend over backwards, jump through, Now, I will be honest with you, they talked about new forms that were part of the new process. I looked on Friday, I did not look today on the webpage. They're not linked, at least off the EMS webpage. But again, they should be forthcoming. They say the new process is down from, it's originally, I think it had something like 24 steps. It's now down to like 12. So that is a help, but many of the physicians reacted with, gee, that's still quite an arduous task. And that's
So,
kind of what's-
Jim, in response to your question, I asked them at the meeting, and they informed me that the hospitals were aware. And I asked that question just as you did. Who they notified, again, I do not know.
Well, again, and please realize your hospital may be contracting with multiple ambulance services on this issue, okay, not just one, because each individual service has to, so you're gonna have to do it with your helicopter folks, your ground folks, because helicopters don't always fly in snowstorms. So, I mean, you're gonna have to ground sort of stuff. I mean, well, you guys fly anything, okay, but anyway, I mean, when you're 0 and 0, at any rate, but that's the deal.
Okay, Deb, anything else?
Oh, any questions on the Remsco report?
Anything to add under training and ed for?
Yes. Under
Whoops,
tra-
I'm sorry.
Just a quick question
Yes.
for the bloods related, for these agencies, you're getting the certification and all that to transport blood, what kind of training programs are they offering to their ALS personnel?
So the training is part of the process and has to be developed between the blood bank, the service medical. Go ahead.
The training program that you have to submit a training program with your application. They will tear it apart down to the color of the slides and the font.
They said that they're going to template one.
It is a unhealthy process, and I do not know that their new rollout, if they do what they claim, how it's going to work, but I will tell you that they will refuse your policy because it says, I will document vitals. It does not say specifically in the PCR. That is how, quite frankly, stupid Wadsworth is.
So with
So-
SUNY or, any of these other major colleges, especially the teaching hospitals, medical teaching hospitals, they don't have a blood class that they may be teaching or offering out there. And the reason I ask is, in the military, we have what we call the manpower program, where we're trained to, get blood products and back aircraft and also transport patients. Of course, we're always looking for something else out there. And, if there are steps to get this training, you think somebody would have something already pre-canned or pre-paged that, we could go to out there and say, hey,
With this entire policy statement, you would think an awful lot of things, but, no.
So before we go any further, I want to say that these are different people than you dealt with. And my understanding is that they were aware of it being such a problem when you did yours, that they are supposed to be, to make it better. And Debbie, I almost remember hearing them say maybe we're gonna template a training.
They did,
Okay.
they didn't say when.
Well, no, that could be the other problem, but again, it's supposed to be a process between the service medical director, the hospital, the blood folks, and
Yeah, offline, I'll be happy to talk about the military component to this.
Well, I just like I said, just
Impact.
looking for different training
Yep.
options out there,
Yep.
that, we can get our fingers tight into just besides our internal stuff, The military does it in one way, but it's always nice to look at something else out there to kind of give our paramedics something a little bit different to look at.
One of the focuses is the blood reaction thing. That's a very big component of this. And I will tell you that the collaborative protocol folks, Dr. Fulliger, he won't mind me mentioning this, he's been tasked to create one specifically for blood reaction to put through the next Remsco to make this easier that way. And to be honest, okay, blood reaction. You shut the blood off and you treat it like any other anaphylactic reaction. I mean, that's pretty much it, okay? I get it.
the problem
And-
is,
and-
the next meetings are in January.
Right. And,
Yeah, you know.
and to be honest, I need to say, without mentioning names, there was a couple transfusion reactions identified in the pre-hospital care environment that was not EMS's fault, it was the sending facility's fault, that sparked some of the angst over the importance of those protocols, okay? And that was another element to this that heightens some of the awareness of that element of this, okay? I think Mark knows where I'm referring, but anyway, the point is that, again, it's now, and again, the other important thing to point out for the hospitals are sending a nurse, they went on record as saying, is not acceptable out of the hospital. So that puts the physicians in a very tough position between, do you hang a lot of blood on a bad trauma, then ship it out and hope they, don't bleed on the ride, or do you not give them blood and go and hope they don't bleed on the ride? And there were a number of physicians who pointed that out and were not happy.
If you wanna look at training too, keep me an email and I will send you.
I'll get with you after, since I get your email address, and maybe we can do some stuff that we already have, we're trained on, and send over to you.
Yeah, that would be super useful, yeah.
Thank you.
So in training and ed today, we covered everything that's under the education and training on the minutes that I gave you. But we decided that we're going to look at attrition rates in our courses, and we're gonna go back 2 years. We talk a lot about this amongst ourselves at state council and statewide, like the attrition rate in courses, they say about 35%. So we want to see where we are as a region in our courses. So how many people start out in class, and how many people end up testing in class, and the reasons why people are not completing the courses. To see where we are, if we're lower than the average, if we're about the same as everybody else, or our attrition rates are higher. So that's what we're going to be doing for the next couple of months. Any questions for training and ed? And if there's anything that you would like training and ed to look at, please send me an email or something like that you would like to see us look at, or something like that.
One friendly amendment, if I may.
Yeah.
Just spread the word to any CICs who aren't here tonight. Reminder, to now recertify your CIC, you have to have 3 hours of the state-approved program. Now, you can use up to the additional 6 hours for any other type instructor continuing ed. It could be if you're at a college doing, whatever, a student-teacher day, or, a teaching day. But you have to do that. So one of the things that I'm recommending, and we talked about, is doing a couple of those over the next year or so, so make sure people have the availability, because you need that additional 3 hours to make this work, okay? Just a reminder to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John. We did discuss it. Any questions for training and ed?
Okay, any questions? Everybody good? County reports. Chris, Jefferson County.
Jefferson County, biggest thing going on in Jefferson County right now is our anticipated communications update. We're getting a new UHF trunk radio system for all fire EMS law enforcement. The contract was signed almost 2 years ago. Any agency that wants to purchase equipment has to do so by December 1st to get a really good discount. We anticipate the installation of the mobiles and base stations, et cetera, to be started sometime next year, April or May. Around that time, we're gonna start doing some training for all the different agencies that are involved in this process. I've been dealing with, working with the hospitals, all the EMS agencies, first responder agencies. I've talked to quite a few of the neighboring counties, try to let them know what's going on and get some input into how we're going to be able to interact with them. Spend a lot of time on with Fort Drum folks as well. We did an airport drill at the Watertown International Airport. Several geese attend. No, just kidding. We did a drill at the airport. It involved a lot of different agencies. EMS was by far the biggest component. It was an active shooter situation at the airport. So it involved the Sheriff's Department, State Police, Border Patrol, a lot of EMS agencies, fire, involved the airport, TSA. Fort Drum was there with their helicopter. It really kind of turned out funny. LifeNet was supposed to come play with us. They actually had a real life call, so they weren't available. We had an ambulance that had a transmission problem. They weren't allowed to come, so it was a typical disaster day. So, but they managed through. Did have some communication problems, like normal. You know, I don't know, even with the new radio system, those are always going to be solved. The usual things that we don't do every day, we really need to work on. EMS command, incident command as a whole, really was lacking, and some basic triage. We're having an after-action meeting tomorrow. We'll put everything together. But all in all, I think it went well. Well, with any drill, there's a whole lot of things we learned, and there's a whole lot of improvement left. Current courses, EMT, we're doing a class here in Watertown. Carthage is also doing a basic EMT class. EMT refresher class going on here at Watertown. Paramedic refresher Paul's doing one down to South Jeff, Westfield. Upcoming courses, we're doing a stop the bleed training at General Brown School. There's about 200 teachers or so. Expected, it kind of came up very suddenly. I know that Sarah Delaney, another doctor, is going to be doing one at IHC, and I think in River? Watertown. So I think the word is kind of getting out. I think eventually you're going to see quite a need for some of this stuff. People will be wanting this training. EMT course in Lewis County scheduled to start in November. Go through May of next year, do Tuesdays and Thursdays. And CFR class, Police Academy, starting in January. Spring courses, basic EMT class here, Watertown, January 15th, testing out in May. Piers is also doing a basic EMT class, starts a little bit later, January 29th, they're testing out in June. EMT refresher, February through May. The CFR class, March through May, and anticipate an AEMT class, January 20th through June 20th. And the instructor update scheduled for spring fling, right, April 26th. That's it.
Any questions on Jefferson County report? Jim, St. Lawrence County.
I'll do a small part of it, and then I'll give it to Carol.
Oh, not me, be Mark.
Oh, that's right, Mark is now the new one, that's right. Basically, similar on communication. St. Lawrence County is still working on ours. We were supposed to get Messina totally up and running. The tower there, they put one antenna up for the fire and EMS, and that was fine. The second one for the Sheriff's Department went up. It was a Station Master fiberglass, and it was broken when they put it up. So they had to haul that back down and order a new one. Until they get that repaired, we're holding off on Ogdensburg, but Ogdensburg Tower, we're really hoping will get up in this month of October. Apparently there were some problems with clamping, some standoffs to the tower itself, so you guys in Jefferson are going to work with that. if you put a fiberglass down and need a stand out, especially if you use the same company, because apparently they couldn't find a proper clamp to clamp it, without putting 3 or 4 on, and it wasn't designed for that. Other than that, police dispatch, we, as of hopefully August 22nd, will be up to full staff for a period of time, hopefully. We're still training 2 new ones, third one will come on October 22nd. Mark, what do you have from the council?
A lot of manpower shortages countywide. Quite a bit of difficulty responding to everything. So,
Yeah, along that line, unfortunately, we've had 3 that I know of in about the last 35 days, where it's been more than 30 minutes, we haven't even been able to get an ambulance out the door. Going to the 4th and 5th unit, and people finally have called and said, we're taking POV. And with St. Lawrence County, when you go to the 4th and 5th unit, now you're talking 30 miles. Just to get to the scene.
Any questions for St. Lawrence County?
Fourteen.
Bob, Lewis County.
Well, Chris stole my thunder with the BLS starting in November. It's all good. That's pretty much all I have. No. Just, looking forward to that starting. Beaver Falls is in their renewal process as well. The office is working through a couple of these renewals. The biggest issue that they've had is the mats that need to come with the recertification now causes chaos on the inside, because they don't quite understand that sometimes it's to the corner XYZ and 1, 2, 3, and sometimes it's to the back side of Farmer Johnson's big field next to the oak tree, where the old fence line used to be. So we've really had some issues with the recertifications on that side of the house, and we actually have Seville back on the map because Constableville Volunteer Ambulance did not exist in the state's eyes. It needed to be, I believe it was West Turn Volunteer Ambulance, and can't change the name, it's been there for 100 years. So, little things like that have become things that consume a lot of time in the office, but we keep chugging along and doing our thing, and LSR keeps putting up the basic EMT classes every year and manage to get them full and run them and put some basics on the streets. So we're still not keeping up with the attrition rate, but at least it's starting to maintain a little better than it was before. So that's it.
Any questions for Bob on Lewis County? Going on to old business, Mid-State Region, the Distance Learning Paramedic Program. There is some of us that sit on a committee that have been meeting with JCC to discuss options for the paramedic program to come back to Jefferson Community College, and they have pretty much decided that they do not want to pursue that. They are interested in working very closely with Mid-State on a distance learning. They're offering rooms to do the distance learning. They want to talk to them about the lab and using the lab and some of that stuff, but they just don't feel financially, unless they have 30 people in the program, and we realize that's not ever going to happen, that they can successfully pull off the program. They were losing on an average of over $100,000 a year on the program, and they just can't do that. They're very interested in engaging with Mid-State on doing the distance learning. We talked about other things maybe we could look at to help them, and there's just nothing, there's nothing there to, we can't guarantee them 30 students every year, every 2 years to enter that program. It was stressed with them that there is a need for paramedics. There was some conversations that went on about that there's no need in the area for that. So that was, there wasn't a job market. So that was reiterated with them that that is not the case. So that was, like I said, reiterated with them. So we had Andy Johnson up here. He met with us last year. Told us he would work with us and he would get paperwork through and do things, and paperwork sat in Albany for this fall. It was turned in there in July and never got processed, so we weren't able to start the distance learning this fall. And so we've got to work closely with Albany to see what we can do to make sure we're set to go for next year and pursue this. And I have contacted AFG on grants to see if we would be eligible to apply for a grant for the region to help subsidize the folks that will have to travel down to Utica for specific classes and things like that. And they have not given me a response whether we're eligible to apply or not as a region. Ann had checked into it under Fort Drum and the program agency and was told
We didn't qualify.
they didn't qualify. So I'm trying to find out if we qualify as a region so that perhaps we could get some funding to help people do that extra distance, to help with some expenses to do that.
What happened to the Mark Davis scholarship at BCC? Is that, I know there's a bunch of money sitting there, and if there's no paramedic program, I just happen to know my family, why can't we reallocate that for something like that? And I'd be more than happy to help out with whatever is needed, but I know there's money there. Because if there's no paramedic program at BCC, that might, I mean, I don't know how much is there, it's gonna be a lot, but it's something.
Could we allocate it to help with the travel for some folks?
Yeah, I mean, right, and I'll talk to the family, and if whatever we need to do to get signatures, that's not gonna be an issue.
All right, I will send an email to Linda and Tom Finch and ask them that question, and Justin and I will copy you on it
Okay.
so that you have that communication as well. But we'll check into that. We did talk about the equipment there, and that some of it was bought by the region, and that if it wasn't going to be utilized, that I would hope that, our regional stuff would come back, and the other, that perhaps we could end up with it in the region as well, and they seem very open to that if the lab doesn't stay there. The problem with the lab staying there is Midstate would have to do an accreditation to add that in, and accreditation is very costly, my understanding is. Even just adding a site, it was quite expensive. So whether that would be an option for a minimal amount of people, really don't know. So we're waiting to hear more on that.
So, is there anywhere in the North Country to get an initial paramedic certification now?
No.
Augsburg or nothing?
No.
The closest place is Utica.
Syracuse.
And then, is there any place that's doing paramedic refreshers in the North Country? Is that just done through the county, or you have to go down?
Jefferson County.
Jefferson County, they've got one currently going.
Yeah.
What, if you guys are doing the CME program to recertify people, one of the things you may want to think about is core contact paramedic refresher. It's a little easier to put on, but that's another option.
Any questions on that? How about an update on Fort Drum with where they're at with being able to do missions in the North Country?
Yeah, sure. All right, so, since, the last time I was here, we've been able to do missions. Our biggest hiccup has been the getting from the counties to division down to us and launching on the mission. As of Friday, we are now in the clearinghouse with LifeNet, and hopefully sometime this week we'll be in the same clearing, or this Real Mercy Flight clearinghouse. So if there's a need, we'll be in a certain part of the system for us to respond. Saving having these agencies call 6 different numbers to try to get a helicopter. So we've simplified that. We will be doing a test for it here in the next couple of weeks, once we get that all set up. As far as the approval process for us, there's just a few small, minor, I guess, improvements that we're gonna have to do, at the division level. It comes down to us, but that's already been worked, this stuff has been identified. So we're working. Like I've told a lot of the agencies and some of the few phone calls I've got, you know, if you need us, LifeNet's not available, Rome Mercy Side's not available, or if it's an actual SAR mission, call us, we will come out there as long as we have weather. Lewis County's tried to get us to come, or the hospital's tried to get us to come down there, and of course, this day, the weather was all the way to the ground. Same with City Potsdam, so it's happening. We did do a mission all the way out in Lake Placid, so we know it does work. It just, like I said, it's working through the small hiccups, but, you know, we're ready to go.
And just to emphasize the point, the clearinghouses can get us now, so you can contact Air Methods or Mercy, or whomever. Air Methods definitely now, Mercy shortly, and they will go through their lists, just to make sure that there's no competition between our service and the commercial services. So all the counties need to do is contact the Air Methods or the Mercy clearinghouse, and they will get us if we're up for that mission. So I know for Air Methods, anything that's search and rescue, they'll call us first because they don't have hoist capability, they don't have infrared capability. But if it's a scene flight, so point of injury sort of flight, we have to make sure that Air Methods and Mercy are not available before we can launch on a mission like that. And for now, we will work towards being able to do inter-facility stuff, but there's still some questions that need to be answered before we definitely can accept inter-facility missions. If there's no way that person can get down to Syracuse, nobody else will come and get them. Like Sergeant Dickey said, give us a call, and if we can do it, we'll do it.
Now, on the training side, I'm still working with a lot of agencies, trying to get training set up. It's just trying to sync everybody's calendars. We just kind of had a relapse in September when Florence came through. We got put on standby to go down there. So, working with different agencies, try to get some training set up. We will continue doing it through the winter time. I probably won't bring a helicopter out, but I'll probably come out and do some classes, you know, just a PowerPoint class. Did have some discussions late last week with one Air Methods was one of them. I did talk tonight to Rome Mercy Flight that maybe we're going to try to do a collaboration of an exercise where we go in and do a SAR mission and we hand a patient off to them. So that way we can work with both the ground fire and EMS services just to kind of continue to build on, you know, this whole North Country air coverage that, you know, we're trying to offer or to be part of.
Any questions from anybody?
So just from the county's perspective, I know that we've had past discussions on planning and your dispatch procedures. How's that going?
I've written a dispatch policy and procedure, and then I've altered it, and now I've got to alter it again, finding out this today that it's part of the clearinghouse now. This is the first I'm hearing that information.
We have a meeting Tuesday at the airport with Jeremy and LifeNet and Kobe, and the way that the military explained it was that they can't compete, they have to, at the time they were having to call everybody to make sure that there was no competition. Clearinghouse, they're gonna do that in one-stop shop, and they already know that Mercy Flight is down or LifeNet is unavailable, so it's just gonna expedite that process. And that's just for a reason, and honestly, are you sure that's in there? 'Cause Saturdays wasn't, right?
No, they didn't activate it.
It wasn't for the drill?
It was an air control, but they never activated it.
Okay, good.
And I had to get clarification before I could send it on, and that's why I just got.
Well, I wrote the policy and procedure, it was 9 different phone numbers to initially, and then went down to 2, and now we're finding out the clearinghouse is available, so I'm actually holding policy until we get some ground schools in place anyway, because, you know, the commercial schools, ground school is great. That's a whole different bird than a commercial.
No, I understand.
So, we did have you guys come out to our fire advisory board, so 2 of the chiefs got an introduction to it, but we need to do some regional stuff and get a little more familiar with the way things work, so.
And in Jefferson County, you already know that we have 10 designated landing sites, you guys already know that maybe Lewis County might run into the same problems, you got the same.
They were developed by Mass. The ones that I updated last year, all of the language ones were developed by Mass years ago, so they should be compatible with your guys' aircraft units. And there's old maps kicking around that, I mean, I can put you in contact with the pilots that actually set them up with your aircraft, so.
Well, as long as I have a grid.
But they were flying Hueys then, not Blackhawks.
Well, the pilot I'm talking about flew both.
Well, I know, but I wonder if it was set up specifically for Hueys versus the Blackhawks.
From the pilot's mouth, Blackhawk.
Like I said, they, again, ended up in the northern part of the county, they were in it's not usable in the curve. And the rest of them are okay.
Yeah, so far.
Two, and we'll continue, again, Lewis County, Orange County, I don't know if you have anything like that. Where they-
Well, I'm gonna supply them with what we have for pre-designated. And then, of course, we can always do some on the fly if it's a long extrication or something.
Joe, how were you with your policies?
We're the same place like Bob. I mean, we've set out starting, you know, I think initially we had a lot of cooks involved and not enough spoons. But I think that since we've eliminated some of that, we're on a better track now. We've actually activated them, well, we tried to activate them at least 6 times. And I think Saturday was our first successful contact with you guys, so I think it's definitely coming around. Yeah, we're working on landing zones. We've got to develop different ones. Karen provided us with great maps today for Fort Drum because we had an issue on Cantonment the other day, trying to get Mercy Flight in there. But we should be hopefully moving forward with this, so.
Any questions? Any other old business? Move on to new business, spring fling for next year. I asked Janine to forward the contract. There's no changes to the contract from previous years, so looking for approval here to sign the contract to firm up our dates for spring fling next year.
Motion to do so.
I have a motion and a second to accept Edgewood's contract. Again, no changes from last year. All those in favor? Opposed? So carried. We already discussed regional faculty. John, do you have stuff that you'd like to cover?
No, just, I guess, if I may mention, some of you remember Ray Filkey. Ray Filkey passed away a few weeks ago. I'd just like to offer a moment of silence to remember Ray. Thank you. One, I guess, State Health Department note, just one thing. Narcotics applications, recertifications. The Bureau of BCS has made a decision that they will no longer accept the pharmacist as the agent. So now it has to be, the pharmacist can sign off on agent, but it still has to have other people designated at the agency to be agents, okay, working on behalf of the pharmacy. So if you send in an ARC application, recert, which only lists the pharmacist, it will be rejected. So just be advised, okay? If anybody needs any clarification, come see me. I'll be happy
It
to
would be very helpful if they took the pharmacist license number off there in that section so that people know that it's not looking for the pharmacist.
That was suggested.
I did send that clarification out to all our narcotic agencies.
Unfortunately, mine was one that got rejected. So. Any other new business? Go ahead.
Kind of late notice, but I can't help that because this was scheduled a while back. Anyone who's interested in becoming an amateur radio operator technician class, there's a class starting Thursday. Kind of short notice to get the book in time to read ahead, but the class is going on. It was requested by Alex Bay's Hospital. And just as information, every hospital in the area has ham radio in it right now. And we do run drills between the different hospitals every now and then. So that's something that if you're interested in being part of it, get hold of me after the class and I can help you get set up for that. And just as a note, you mentioned, there was mentioned some command training. The county's Public Safety Critical Incident Management Board is now located at JCC. They have talked about offering a class up there for it. However, we may be able to make arrangements if someone wanted to run a physical class up there, maybe we'll get access to it. They've even got a dispatch center set up there. And you can set up, if you've never seen the board, there's actually 2 of them. You can set up any sort of incident that you want to do and assign roles and play through it. So if we need to do command training, perhaps that's something we need to take a look at. We'll have to talk to JCC because it's on their facility now. But the county did basically donate that to them. So they ought to give us a little bit of credit on it anyhow. That's all I got.
Just a quick question for the council. I know that there is training opportunities in the area that are being put on to local departments and whatnot. Would there be any issue if we had some of our flight paramedics attending those trainings at all? I think it'd be a good opportunity for our faces to get known to folks in the community, especially with us increasing our DISC mission, our civilian mission and whatnot. And it's going to help us out with helping to maintain proficiency for our paramedics and stuff as well. I'll forward that information if the council is okay with it to our flight paramedics and whatnot, so they're aware of those training opportunities as well.
And I would like to perhaps look at having your flight paramedics do some training for us with the trauma and the knowledge that you have that you could share would be invaluable to our providers in the field as well.
See what we can do.
Any other new business from the floor? Barring no CONs or anything, we don't meet again until February. Somebody have something? Oh. So we have a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor?
Anybody opposed?